How has God chosen to reveal himself? And Romans 1:20 says, through his creation. So creation is very simple. But how do you look at creation? Most of us cannot see the details, and so we cannot tell why it is, how does creation tell us that there is a God? Well, the most important word here, can you see, is the word intelligent design. But the most important, the first reason I would say, is design. Because everything that has got to do with an intelligent mind is shown by a design. The more complicated the design, the more complex the design, the more intelligence is involved. Or the more simplified, we say irreducible minimum, that will speak of a mind that knows how to reduce it to simplify things. Even simplification of a complex design needs intelligence. We call it the irreducible minimum. And even then, sometimes it's already complex. So the normal hearer, I'm speaking to all of you, the common method most of us do is, what we don't understand, we switch off. Today I ask you, please don't switch off on me, because this part is very important. How do you explain intelligent design? Those who say there is no God say there is no design. But is it true? How do you see there's design? So I'd like to show you one of the most important elements that shows design is the DNA. But before we see this, let me explain. You know, every day, do you know our cells are dying? So when the cells die, what happens in our body? It's being replaced. So you all look beautiful and fresh because your cells are being replaced. Because our cells die, it has got a shelf life. So how do this cell get replaced? And the process is a very complex process. And if your cells don't get replaced, what happens? A 5-year-old kid will look like an old man because his cell didn't rejuvenate, so it's dying. It's just skin is dropping off, cells are dropping off, but there's no replacement. Now, how do you know, make sure that your cells that replace are correct cells? For instance, the cells to replace your fingernails are different from the cells used to replace your ear or your hair. They are different structures. What instructs your cell to say when it goes to the ear, oh, please, you do an ear cell? What happens in your body if the cells start growing different from your normal cell? What do you call that? Exactly, you get cancer. So it's amazing none of us here got cancer. But why we can get cancer? Why is that when the cells in your body is different from the cell from another person? The DNA is different, we say. So the DNA is something you all have heard. But I want you to see this video clip to see how much of this you understand. It's about the DNA. The DNA is about information. Okay, coding information. Let's see this video clip.
Let's go back to Richard Dawkins, where we started the lecture. Remember, he was saying that when we're looking at life, we're looking at something that appears to be designed, but isn't really designed. And when people took that idea and began to try to use evolutionary concept to explain the origin of life in the first place, they were really confident that they could do it because they didn't think there was even an appearance of design. The cell was thought to be so simple, they thought we didn't even have an appearance of design. Now we have an exquisite appearance of design. What we're talking about is digital code inside the cell. And Dawkins, oddly, has been one of the people who's acknowledged that this is a big mystery, but also that the information in DNA is, he says, like a machine code. It's uncannily computer-like. apart from differences in jargon, the pages of a molecular biology journal might be interchanged with those of a computer engineering journal. In other words, we've got a striking appearance of design here. Now, the question I want to leave you with at the end of this lecture, and we're going to come back to address in the next lecture, is this. Has this appearance of design been explained away by any undirected process? Remember, the whole Darwinian strategy at a higher level in biology is to explain away the appearance of design using the undirected process of natural selection acting on random mutations and variations. Can that strategy work when we're talking about the origin of life? And in particular, the origin of the information you need to get life going? If so, then the conclusion of no design, which is driving the confidence that Dawkins has in his atheistic and materialistic worldview, might still hold. But if not, if we're looking at evidence of real design, we may be looking at a new day in biology, and one which is going to require an entirely different perspective.
It's very important for you to grasp this. What is this DNA? How does it actually show intelligent design? Maybe let me explain it this way. Here is a factory. This factory must produce these cells that are in your body, otherwise you'll die. You need a factory. Do you know that you're a walking factory? But this factory needs to be instructed as to what cells to produce. So the DNA is the instruction. You need coded instruction so that the factory can make the product that is needed. Right. Now, what is coded information? Instruction is also called, the key word is information. The factory doesn't know what you want them to make. Yeah, cells, but what kind of cells? So, some instruction need to go. Now, some of you are familiar with what is called CAD-CAM. Have you heard of this term, CAD-CAM? Anybody know what it is? Computer-aided design. So the factory manufactures a product, which are cells in your body, but it needs design. So in your body, there's a God-made computer. Now, the DNA you see is a double helix. It's got some characters in it. We call it 4 bases. And then it's what we call, it puts together amino acids and form the protein. Now, I know all these are words and words, but maybe you followed me here. Those of you who do IT knows that you have also information and coding. You're familiar with it. Ask any IT people here. You got zeros and 1, 0, 1. Just 0, 1, 0 and encoding. All computers use encoding. So when you instruct your computer to retrieve certain information, well, that's how information is communicated by encoded computer language. Should be 0 and 1s. At this very basic, I just don't say it's cheap. I also not very computer software expert myself, but this DNA double helix you see in this picture exactly carries the information, except that instead of 0 and 1, you use 4 characters. A, C, T, G. Okay, the details. This is not a science class, so I don't think, I try and simplify it, all right? And but this DNA chain information is very long. But nonetheless, this is the coded information that must be fed to the factory. Okay. So what you see in this video clip, I'm going to show you again, is it instructs the factory, and it's amazing how your factory knows what to do when he receives the information. Then it comes out cells that will be transported to the different parts of your body to replace it. So you all look young. And for younger people, you look older. All right, that's to rejuvenate your life. Otherwise, we'll die young. All right, we cannot survive. So there are two parts. Someone has to write this information. Information must come from, what do you call this? Intelligence. It comes from a mind. And a mind must be in a person. Okay, you don't see a mind in a rock. I know some of us think our minds are as hard as rock, but it's not true. There are plenty of circuits inside. But this coding and information or direction or instruction as to how to do, what to do, comes from a mind. We call it in science lingo information. Information. The factory needs information to know what do you want me to do? How do you want me to do it? And so this chain called the double helix or DNA carries all the information that's necessary for the factory to produce. And Mr. Darwin didn't know about this. He thought everything is so simple. It's just one little soup come out from it, one simple cell called the amoeba, and the amoeba keeps adding information. No such thing. Information can reduce but not increase. It always reduce, not increase. So, but where did the information come from? It comes from our mind. That is understood. It cannot come from a dead substance. A mind, an intelligent person. Yes, the Bible calls him God. So now, what I want you to know is, this time I'm going to show you the second time. Because this is actually a simplified form of what is actually happening. It's already oversimplified. And I want you to just know even all the parts. There's the part that's being manufactured is the brown piece. But the information is on the blue piece. Now you watch this carefully so that you can explain to your friend. Because your friends may ask you, how does DNA prove there is God? You see, it proves that DNA carries information. And information must come from an intelligent mind. And this intelligent mind must be able to design things. And the design is in our very body cells. It's design. Firstly, design, then there's a factory in your body that makes it.
All right. About it. Let's look at a little piece of animation that shows exactly how this plays out. And what we're going to see is how the information in DNA directs the synthesis or construction of proteins.
In 1957, Francis Crick first proposed that chemicals, called bases along the spine of the DNA molecule, function as alphabetic characters in a written language or digital characters in machine code. This short animation shows how this digital information directs protein synthesis. First, a large protein complex separates the tightly wound strands of the DNA to prepare it to be copied. During this process of transcription, a protein complex called a polymerase produces a single-stranded copy of the original instructions. Here we see this copy, a messenger RNA molecule being constructed inside the polymerase. Now we see the polymerase in action from the outside as it spits out the messenger RNA transcript. Next, this RNA transcript approaches and passes through a molecular machine called the nuclear pore complex, an information recognition device that controls the flow of information in and out of the cell's nucleus. Now we see the genetic assembly instructions approaching and arriving at a two-part chemical factory called a ribosome, the site of protein synthesis. As the messenger RNA transcript passes through the ribosome, the process of translation ensues. During translation, a mechanical assembly line builds a specifically sequenced chain of amino acids in accord with the instructions on the transcript. These amino acids are transported from other parts of the cells by molecules called transfer RNAs, which link specific sequences of bases to corresponding amino acids. The sequential arrangement of the amino acid determines the type of protein constructed. When the construction of the chain is complete, it is often transported to a barrel-shaped machine that helps fold it into the precise shape required to perform its function. After the chain is folded into a protein, it is released into the outer cytoplasm to do its job in the cell.
I'm an engineer by training, so I also got to learn just the same way you need to learn about cells. The wonder of, you heard the word factory, you heard the word information, and you heard about ribosomes and so on. This is some of the language of creation that you need to pick up. Don't say, oh, these are complicated. No, these are the language that we use for transmitting the message here, that God is very, very wise. See how complex it is? And then it's how your cell is being renewed every day. You didn't even know this. When I saw this, I was so amazed. And I said, God, you're a really designer.